Hey guys, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the Solera slide-out awning here in our 2021 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel. So if you're like me and you hate having to get up on a ladder to clean off your slide-out after you're done with your camping trip, the Solera slide-out awnings are going to be the thing for you. These are going to help deflect all the debris, the leaves, any acorns, anything else that might fall off of a tree when you're out camping in the wilderness or even at a campsite by deflecting it right off the top, which is also going to help keep the inside of your camper clean. This is because your wiper seals do a pretty good job at kind of sliding off all the stuff that sits on top of your slide out, but they don't get everything. So that's where this is going to come in, and it's going to prevent any of that getting in there. Another great thing about our slide out awning here is that it's going to collect the moisture up on top, which is going to prevent that mold and mildew sitting on top of your slide out and then coming inside of your camper. So like I said, the slide out seals aren't going to get everything off of there. Another thing that it's going to do is help reflect the sun, which is also going to keep it off of the roof of your slide out, which is then going to keep your camper a whole lot cooler and not make your air conditioner work as hard. As far as installation difficulty goes, this is fairly simple. It's really just kind of trying to balance the size of the slide out roller itself, which can be quite difficult depending on the size of your slide out. So you may want to get an extra pair of hands, maybe two people, definitely help you out holding it up and really getting it into place. Other than that, you can easily do this at home. So we lucked out, we already have an extrusion rail added onto our RV here, but we do have these gutter spouts here that we're gonna have to trim back a little bit because we're not gonna be able to get our fabric in through our extrusion rail, and this would sit here and just kind of rub on the fabric and end up ripping it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut it just along where the extrusion rail is and then come right up right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clean that up. You can just take a utility knife and just kind of score the plastic here. And the next thing we're going to do is take some needle nose pliers and we're going to pull up on our extrusion rail just to make it a little bit easier to slide in our bead. So I'll bend that up and then the bottom portion down a bit. That way when it's time to slide it in, we don't have to worry, it'll go right in. So in your kit there's going to be two brackets. There's going to be your inner bracket and your outer bracket. Your inner bracket is going to be what gets screwed onto your actual slide out. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to run some butyl tape across these screw holes right here. And that's going to give us a nice watertight seal so that we don't have to worry about water leaking in through our screws. Put that down there nice and tight. We're going to do this for both brackets. Just score it a couple times to really get through it. There we go. And now that we have it on there, we can go ahead and take our flat-headed screws. They're going to come with a square bit. And these are what we're going to put into our actual bracket here, just because we have to slide on this bracket over it. So if we use the round-headed screws that come with it, these wouldn't actually be able to slide together because this is going to stick up too much. So we'll go ahead, grab 5 of our screws, and get up next to our slide out. When you're looking at your bracket, it's going to have this little lip hanging off the top of it. That is going to need to face up because that's going to keep us from digging too far up into our flange to where we can't get our outer bracket on. But the next thing we're going to do is pull off our backing for our butyl tape. And we're going to try and get this up in the corner as much as we can. I'm going to try and keep this rounded edge a little bit away from our very corner edge here, just so that I don't have to fight it when I'm trying to put that on. And then I'm going to press that in. I want to make sure that we're up and over as much as we can, besides just clearing that. And then we can go ahead and start shooting in our flat-headed screws. make sure this doesn't move at all, because as you're shooting them in, it'll try and walk on you a little bit. As you can see, that butyl tape wraps around the threads of the screw and kind of shoots out. That's what really gives it that watertight seal. And now with that all in, we can go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. So with our extension rod, you'll notice that there's a hole going in it on one end. We're going to match that up with the hole that's on our actual arm here. And then there's the end caps that we're also going to match up the hole with. We'll put that in. And I'm just going to hand start my screw here and then grab my screw gun and we'll shoot that in place. This is a bit hard. You're not going to be able to get it with just a screwdriver. You will need to use a screw gun. And now we can go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. All right, so now we're up here with our awning. I've got an extra set of hands here. I'm going to try and push this in. Here's our little bead right here that we're going to push through the extrusion rail. And we're going to have, like I said, we have this gutter in the way, so we are going to have to kind of fight that, but we shouldn't be too bad since I trimmed it back a bit. As you're doing this, just be real careful. You don't want to take a chance at ripping your awning as you're going through the extrusion rail. So for your outer bracket, it's going to have 2 sets of tracks. For our application today, we're going to go ahead and use the bottom track so that it sits up just a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is kind of slide that on just a little bit, and then we're going to have our extension rod ready to go in place. So as I slide it on, it'll go onto both. One thing to keep in mind here is that you need to make sure that your arms are facing straight up. If they're facing any other way, your awning's not going to sit correctly. So with the second set of hands on the other side doing the same thing, we'll go ahead and slide this on. And then we can start adjusting our awning to make sure that it's sitting correctly on both sides of our slide out. So your kit's going to include 4 screws that look like this. They're black with a little bit of red Loctite in them. And they're going to take an Allen key. Having done a few of these, I've noticed that sometimes one Allen key doesn't fit all 4 of the screws, or maybe there's just like a little bit of something in there from whenever they sprayed it. So you may have to kind of force your Allen key in there, but just a little tech tip there. So what we're going to do with these is put them up onto our outer bracket. On your outer bracket, there's going to be 2 sets of screw holes. We're going to be using the bottom because we use the bottom when we slid on our bracket. If you put it up in the top, it's not actually going to be in contact with anything, and your bracket will still be able to move. And actually, I'm going to start this by hand, but this can get pretty tight real quick just because of that Loctite. And like I said, this is just going to prevent your outer bracket from being able to slide off of your inner bracket. Now that we have this side tightened up, we can go ahead and do the same thing over on the other side. With this side complete, we can go ahead and start sliding our awning back and forth, side to side, making sure that it's even on both sides and that our awning is actually centered on our slide out. So the next step is going to be screwing in the sheet metal screws that came with your kit. There's going to be 4 of these included, and we're going to shoot these into the 2 holes that are in our outer bracket. Now on the inside of our outer bracket is a hexagon shape that's going to match up with the extension rod, but it's a little bit bigger, so your extension rod can sit kind of off center. So we're just going to hold it up just a bit, and as you can see, it kind of fell into place, and we're going to shoot in our screws. As you're shooting these in, you want to kind of just tap them in, because I have had the experience where the head is actually busted off of the screw if I sat there and just held it. So we're going to take it nice and slow, make sure that we get this in there right. Now with that in place, just because everything else is black here, I'm going to go ahead and take a black paint marker, make sure this matches, keep the aesthetic of our awning, and then we can go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So the next step of our installation is going to be removing this little clip you see right here. To do that, we're going to spin our awning just a tiny bit, and then we can pull it out. And we're gonna let that go, and then go right over to the other side and pull the other clip. I do want to say these are super useful. You are going to want to hang on to these if you ever have to do any maintenance to your awning. Say a storm happens and rips your awning up and you need to replace the fabric or anything like that. Pushing this clip right back in is going to keep it from sitting there and rolling, which could be super dangerous if you're trying to pull this off and these arms come flying at you. So we ran the slide out in and out a few times to kind of let the awning settle. That way it's exactly where it needs to be, so it's not going to kink up. Your kit's going to come with these two tiny little screws, and we're going to shoot these down into the extrusion rail, and it's going to go right through that bead that runs through our fabric. To do that, we got to be really, really careful because we don't want to accidentally slip off of this and go into our fabric. So we're going to come about an inch, inch and a half back, and we're just going to sit here and tap it. Try and get our hole started, and then we can go all the way through. And now that's going to hold our fabric in place, so it's not going to slide back and forth as we move the awning or the slide out in and out. Now that we have that in place, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, and that'll complete the installation. Well, I think that about does it for today's installation of the Solera slide out awning here on our 2021 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel trailer. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.